It's Sunday morning with Wallace Chapman.
It is 17 minutes past 10 o'clock. Welcome to the show. My name is Wallace Chapman. This hour we're talking about bloggers, the role of bloggers, in society really, versus the mainstream media, and what is their role in an election year. And I guess one blog in New Zealand that you really can't go past now, it's one of the bigger blogs, perhaps it might be the biggest in New Zealand politically, it's Whale Oil, and Cameron Slater, the person behind Whale Oil, joins me now. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Bulla Wallace.
Bulla Vanaka. Hey, Cameron, explain, because you won the best blog, didn't you, in the recent Fairfax Blog Awards?
Was in the Net Guide Web Awards.
Right.
For last year, yes, won the best blog award for that, and for over 2 years now have been, in terms of traffic and public web statistics, the number one blog by a country mile.
So over and above the Daily Blog, Kiwi Blog, the Standard, all those public address?
Well, you can add all of those together. In fact, you can add the entire top 10 together, excluding me, of course, and they still don't meet my traffic.
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
I'm not sure. Maybe it's people appreciate my humour, my forthrightness, in some cases my brutality in dealing with politics, and they appreciate that. But realistically, the audience is the king, and it's the same as in radio. If you don't keep your listeners happy, if you don't keep your readers happy, then they'll go somewhere else to find writers or opinion shapers or opinion makers that resonate with them.
Cameron, why did you start writing a blog? I mean, in terms of shaping opinion, why did you start writing an online site as opposed to, say, going into Parliament or becoming a parliamentary worker or working for your community? What was it about blogs that energised you, unlike other things?
Well, I've been brought up in a political family. Basically, since I was about 5 years old, I've had access directly to politicians. I've been involved in campaigns. I've looked at how those are all run. Blogs came about a little early, about 2003. I'd been sitting there lurking and reading and watching. And I was one of those kids who grew up screaming at the television because the interviewer hadn't asked the right questions or things like that. And so I talked to David Farrer, who I'd known from my time living in Wellington, and he said start a blog. And so it was David Farrer who really supported you in starting your own blog. Well, he knew who I was, and initially I started off being anonymous, and the reason for that is I didn't want people to say, oh, you're only saying what your father says, or anything like that. I wanted to establish my own voice.
So you started anonymous? I
started off anonymous with the name Whale Oil, and then it sort of grew out from there. But what I found, though, is that the technology and the ability to have a voice meant that the filter of the media was removed.
Right.
And then what I also found is that media started to pick up on the things that you say, and they started to follow you as well. And that's when I worked out that it's far better and more influential in New Zealand to be a voice rather than to sit there on the backbench or do whatever in Parliament.
There was a very interesting editorial in the New Zealand Herald, December 3rd, 2013, says blogger Cameron Slater has been told by a Manukau District Court judge his Whale Oil site is not a news medium. And it'll surprise everybody aware of the Len Brown affair. Whale Oil broke that story and was almost alone among news media in covering the seamy details. They were seamy. So I guess my question to you is, we're talking about this morning, are you a journalist?
Well, I believe that in certain respects I am.
What do you mean in certain respects?
Well, people say, oh, well, you don't break news all the time, or you don't, not every article or every post you have is completely written by you, and some of it's commentary. But that's the nature of a one-man band. Although I have a number of volunteers who help on the blog, the point is that if you open up a newspaper, not the whole newspaper is news. There's opinion, there's travel, there's all of those things. Well, I need to cater for an audience that's as broad as a newspaper has, so I do all of those things. So yes, I do journalism, I do investigations, I break news. There's a very long list of stories that have been broken by myself. So yes, in many respects I am a journalist, but there's no doubt at all that Whale Oil as a website is a news medium.
All right, we're talking to Martin Bomber Bradbury from the Daily Blog. I guess you could call it an opposing or an opposition blog site. He's he's waiting right now. Just finally, Cameron, what about the muckraking aspect of both blogs, but in particular your blog? Is this where you get your clicks? Is this how, I guess, you make a name for yourself, being as brutal as you can be or brutal as you want to be?
Well, I've talked about a filter of the media, and in the past we've had a filter of the media, and generally in New Zealand there's two, so there's two sides to it. So in radio there's two main companies that control radio. In television there's two main companies that control television, and it's the same in the newspaper industry. Once you remove that filter, though, how do you get heard? And so, yes, you do have to be robust. You do have to be a little bit brutal. But, somebody called me a muckraker. I think it was Brian Edwards, in fact, called me a muckraker. And I looked that up, and it's an old term for a proper investigative journalist. So I took that as a kind of a badge of honour. All
right. Hey, Cameron Slater from Whale Oil blog. Thanks for joining us this morning, Cameron.
No problem.
It is 23 minutes past 10 o'clock.